Welcome to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Para Cave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. It is NRL Round review time, and Round 5 of the NRL was run and done over the weekend. A couple first-time winners in season 2025, including my Parramatta Eels, who beat the Dragons 23 points to 22, and the Gold Coast Titans, they went down to the Dolphins 36 points to 10. So now every team in the NRL has had a win in 2025, but it started off way back on Thursday with the Raiders taking on the Sharks, and the Raiders got the win 24 points to 20 in what was a pretty reasonable game. A bit controversial with the sin binning of Hudson Young in the 57th minute. Was it a high tackle? We all know that the NRL had their high tackle crackdown, and anything that was a high tackle with force, deliberate force, was going to be 10 minutes in the sin bin. And look, that was a bit of a controversial one, I thought, I guess, with Hudson sort of moving a little bit backwards. And look, yes, the tackle was high, I thought, but I don't think it would deserve the sin bin. But look, that was the new rulings, or the crackdown from the NRL, so they did that one. 18 all at half time, and it ended up being 24-20 at full time. Now 58 minutes into the game, Nicho Hynes, he kicked a penalty goal to get the Sharkies out to 20-18 in front, and it was one hell of a try to Sebastian Kris to get the victory for the Canberra Raiders. Go back and have a look at that try. It is one of the best of the year. It has already, I guess, been nominated as Try of the Year. So check that one out, and you just saw the elation from Ricky on the sideline. It's practically one of the first times I've ever seen him smile, to be honest. He was jumping for joy, giving everyone hugs. There's so much elation on that sideline when Sebastian went and scored that try and that full time. But Hudson Young got a double. Matty Nicholson scored try, the Englishman. He's going really well over the last few weeks in the NRL. I think he made his debut against the Brisbane Broncos a few weeks ago now, but he has been certainly a find in the NRL, and Sebastian Kris got that other try. The back row was dominated with the try scoring, with Britton Nikora scoring 2 tries for the Sharkies in the first half. But look, where is it now for the Sharks? Where do they go from here? They obviously had that loss against the Panthers in Vegas. They sit in 10th spot on the ladder at the moment. 2 wins out of 5 games, I should say. 3 losses. Everyone thought they were a top 4 side. Something just hasn't clicked for them at the moment. So where to for the Sharks? I guess it's pretty unfair because a lot of pressure always goes onto Nicho Hynes. Being the halfback, obviously winning that Dally M Player of the Year award a few years ago now. So a lot of pressure does go onto him, but it is a team game. Is there anyone else in that side that's not stepping up to get these wins? But look, Canberra are always hard, and certainly the Sharks found that one out last week. Now, the next game that was played was an amazing game as well. A few amazing games on the weekend, but it was the Panthers taking on the Cowboys at CommBank Stadium, the Panthers' new home ground for a couple of years, and congratulations to Isaiah Yeo. Played his 250th NRL game for the Panthers. He is the first Panthers player to play 250 games. I think it was for one club, I think. Surely that can't be right. I think think Steve Carter would have done that as well, surely. Anyway, 250 NRL game. No, sorry, he beat Steve Carter's record. That's right. What am I talking about? That was last season, I think. But yeah, 250 games in the NRL for Isaiah Yeo. So 4 premierships, 5 grand finals, Australian captain, a regular in the New South Wales side now these days as well. Look, everyone expected the Panthers to probably bounce back and win this game, although the Cowboys, they got the win the week before, so their confidence was up. They actually stayed in Sydney, I think, for the week. They are off to Perth next week in a part of a double-header, so they did stay in. I think they got down to Sydney pretty early, I think, and spent the week here, and then they stayed in Sydney after the game, and then they'll go over to Perth as well for a bit of promotion of the game. That's on that weekend, next weekend. But everyone expected the Panthers to bounce back. 3 straight losses for them, and very unusual for the 4-time premiers in a row. But you thought Nathan Cleary was coming back, still missing Dylan Edwards. They missed Brian To'o as well. They missed his carries out of trouble, as we know that Brian can do. But look, it was an up and down game. The Cowboys scored first through Murray Tuilagi and in the 6th minute, and then the Panthers, they hit back with 2 quick tries in the 13th and 18th minute, and you thought they were probably in control again, and then Luke Garner got one right before half-time, 18-12 leading into half-time. That was the Panthers, end of the Panthers scoring. Reece Robson, he got a sin bin early on in the game, 25th minute mark, for a head-high tackle. He was pretty shocked about it. It was probably nothing really in it, although with this crackdown happening again, that was the reason for that one. Also, Isaac Tungo, he got a sin bin in the 78th minute as well, so his game was finished nice and late in the game. So he got into the showers first, got that hot shower first, with 2 minutes to go. But the Cowboys, they've turned a little bit of a corner. They hung in there. There was a few mistakes there, but they hung in there and they got the win. Tuilagi got 2 tries, one in the 50th, one, as I said, the first try of the game, and then one in the 50th. Jackson Pudo, he is a centre for the Cowboys, young bloke. Absolutely smashed it on the weekend. He was making some breaks left, right and centre. Very talented youngster. So he scored a try as well. Viliami Valia as well got a try for the Cowboys. So 4 tries to 3. Scott Drinkwater 3 out of 4 conversions, and the Cowboys went on to win 22 points to 18 in front of a crowd of 10,320. Look, as I said, it was a great game. It was still in the balance there for a long time. The Cowboys, they scored their last try in the 50th minute, so it was still in the balance there for a long time. The Panthers, they threw a lot at the Cowboys, but the Cowboys' defence held strong, and they were managed off to hold them off and get the victory. Their second in a row victory for the Panthers. That is 4 in a row losses, so something you don't necessarily see from the Panthers at all, that is for sure. They have had some injuries, as I mentioned, Dylan Edwards, Brian To'o, Nathan Cleary didn't play last week, but he is back now. So, look, a few different new players in this team, but look, you can never write off a champion team as well. So you don't know what is going to happen from there. The next game was the Booker Feuds game. The Rabbitohs taking on the Roosters. And the Rabbitohs got the victory 20 points to 14 in front of a crowd of 22,114 at Accor Stadium. 3 tries, all 3 conversions for the Rabbitohs through Latrell Mitchell, who was back in this game. That was his first game for 2025. And look, didn't he have a great game? What a cracking pass he threw to Isaiah Tass in the 70th minute for him to score in the corner. What an absolute ball that was. If you haven't seen it yet, go back and check it out on YouTube. or the NRL highlights, that was a pass and a half. And so when something that you probably would expect from Latrell Mitchell, but just at the time of the game was all locked up, and then they score. Then he throws that sort of pass and then kicks the goal from the sideline as well. So he had a massive game. It was good to see that he was playing centre as well, which kept Jai Gray in the side. And look, I think you just have to keep Jai Gray in the side at the moment because, he is leading the Dally M Player of the Year awards at the moment. But he's also a little pocket rocket and got another try on the weekend as well. So I think maybe he'll keep that spot. Well, you just have to. When you're winning games, then you just have to, I guess, try and stick with the same team. Unfortunately for the Rabbitohs, though, a few injury concerns and all hamstrings for them. Jamie Humphries, he went off early in the game. It looks like he may miss about 4 to 5 weeks. Cody Walker as well may be out for 2 to 3. Michaeli Ravalawa as well might be out for 6 to 8 weeks with hamstring injury. So across the NRL, there was a lot of hamstring strains, tears. A lot of players went off with hamstrings injuries, so do not know what is going on there. But for South Sydney, certainly to lose 3 of those players, 3 of those calibre players, they're going to have to make some changes. We'll probably see Lewis Dodd, the Englishman, come into the side now. You'll definitely see him come in at halfback. He will get the opportunity now to play NRL football, having come over from England, and Jamie Humphries getting the start on him. So he will no doubt get that starting number 7. As for the number 6, do you move Jack Whiten from the centres and put him in at 5'8"? He has played that position before, both for South Sydney and Canberra, so that could be an option for Wayne Bennett. And I'm sure they'll be able to find a winger for Michaeli Ravalawa to replace him. For the Roosters, look, there were some terrible kicks. The kicks out on the full from Chad Townsend. There are rumours that Chad Townsend and Dominic Young will be dropped for this game, for the next game, I should say. Look, they are struggling at the moment. They had that great win against the Panthers a few weeks ago now, but since then they've had 3 straight losses, I think it was. So they've won two games, lost 3. Lost 4. They've had a bye in there, I should say. 1 win, and that was against the Panthers, and 4 losses. So you thought when they had that win against the Panthers, that was a great win, one of the best wins in club history. But since then, they just have not clicked, and a lot of errors into their side as well, and they have copped a few injuries as well. We'll go through the injury list a little bit later in the show. The next game was one of my favourite games, the Eels and the Dragons game. Now, if you would like an in-depth review about this game from my point of view, check out the game review podcast that is already out, where I go a little bit more in depth into that one. But it was great to see Parramatta get their first victory of the season. Zach Lomax kicked the winning field goal. Clint Gutherson on the opposition side this time, running out of the away sheds, scored 2 tries as well. Pretty healthy crowd, 19,302. Valentine Holmes was pretty accurate with the boot as well, 5 from 5, as well as Zach Lomax as well, 5 from 5. But yeah, the Dragons, they definitely blew an opportunity to win this game, being 20 points to 8 up at one stage, and then allowing Parramatta back into the game. But if you go back and listen to the in-depth podcasts, game review podcast, then you will find out my thoughts on that one. The next game, I didn't catch too much of this game at all. I haven't catched a replay either. I will be honest about that one, but the Dolphins got the win 36 points to 10 up there on the Gold Coast, which is pretty surprising, to be honest, because the Titans, they've been playing some pretty good footy of late, good couple of wins. And back at home as well. But look, the Dolphins, they were desperate for a win, so they've got that win 36 points to 10, 16-0 at half time. Big Tino got sin-binned as well in the first minute of the game. So again, I think that was a high tackle crackdown. So congratulations to the Dolphins. They got their first win of the season. I'm not going to go on about that one because I didn't see much of that game as well. But the Broncos that was the next game up there at Suncorp Stadium, 41,012 people, and it was a massive win to the Broncos, 46 points to 24. 14-12 at half time, so still anybody's game at that point. But then the Broncos in the second half just really ran away with it. Adam Reynolds has a little bit of mail that he got injured in this game as well. He's kicked a 2-point field goal, four conversions, scored a try as well. But yeah, it was pretty neck and neck in that first half. 7 tries to 5 it ended up being. Just the conversions. So 2 from 5 for Api Coruscant. So look, the Tigers, they had a few players out, but they were playing some good footy. They were getting the wins there, but now they're slowly just dropping off a little bit. The Broncos, they had that loss in Canberra a few weeks ago now, but have picked it back up, and it was a pretty crucial win for them. I think they do now sit on second place on the NRL ladder, which is good news for them after their 2024 season. The next game of the weekend was on Sunday, and the first game on Sunday was Manly taking on Melbourne. Now, this was built up as the Battle of Brookvale. We all know that. Adam Blair, he'll hate me for saying this. I might have to pay him some royalties about it, but every game between Manly and Melbourne, the footage of the Battle of Brookvale always comes up. You can hear my podcast chat about this, the Battle of Brookvale game with Adam Blair in it, which is a fairly recent interview late in last year's season, so you can hear all about that one. But look, they always bring it up, but it was a massive win to the Melbourne Storm, 48 points to 24 in front of 17,346. And look, first 10 minutes, it was anybody's game. Then Big Stefano Utukamanu scored the first try. You would have had to have had great money on that one. That would have been paying a bit, but gamble responsibly. And then 2 minutes later, Cameron Munster scored a try, which you thought then, only 2 minutes later, you thought that Melbourne were going to run away with it, because Grant Anderson scored the first of his 3 tries 3 minutes after that one. That was all the scoring for the Melbourne Storm in the first half, as it was 18 points to 10. Only the one try. Manly got off to a good start. They kicked the penalty goal through Ruben Garrick in the 3rd minute of the game. They actually led 2-0. But then Melbourne just took over in their class, and Jerome Hughes back, Ryan Pappenhausen, Cameron Munster as well, but ever Mr. Reliable, Grant Anderson, he's played centre, wing, a good player, a good club man to have around, I guess. As I said, can play a few positions. Bronson Garlick scored a good try off a Harry Grant kick. Some good vision from Harry Grant, and Bronson had enough pace to get that try. Manly, look, they just didn't look like in the game at all. They scored a few late tries through Tolu Kula, who got 2 tries in the game. Jason Saab got one, and Clayton Falalo got one in the 79th minute. So a few late tries there, which made the score look a little bit respectable, but it was 48 points to 24, so still a 24-point loss. It was 18-10 at half-time, and you thought if Manly could come out after half-time and maybe score the first try or two, then definitely they'll be back in this game. But look, just wasn't to be. Straight after half-time, Grant Anderson got his second try in the 48th, and Ryan Pappenhausen the 50th, and then between that, I guess, 48th and 58th minute, or 62nd minute, 14 minutes, Melbourne Storm scored 5 tries, so really took the game away from Manly. So disappointing for them in front of their home fans. Usually it's Fortress Brookvale, but look, wasn't to be on that occasion. And look, the Melbourne Storm, they just roll on, don't they? They had that loss last week against the St George Illawarra Dragons at Cogra. So they very rarely do they suffer 2 losses in a row in a season. Very rarely do they. They do here and there, but very, very rarely. The last game of the round ended up being the Bulldogs taking on the Newcastle Knights at Accor Stadium in front of 24,113, a pretty healthy crowd for a 6:15 game. And look, it was 20-0 to the Bulldogs, so their 5th win in a row. They had the bye this week, so a very good time for them. They'll get another 2 points for that one. So there was a stat that came out today from somebody, I think it may have been Random Stats Guy on Instagram, that there's been 3 teams in the past that have gone 5-0 at the start of the season, and they've ended up making the grand final. I think it was that stat anyway. So all is looking very, very well for the Bulldogs. Look, it was 2-0 at half-time, so it was still anybody's game. Stephen Crichton kicked that penalty goal in the 3rd minute. Look, there was a couple of opportunities, but just didn't get over the line. The Bulldogs looked like they were in control most of that game. And look, Newcastle, it was a pretty brave effort from Newcastle. They lost Daniel Saifidi, I think it was, from... Let me just double check that one. I could have got that one wrong. Sorry, Jacob Daniels, of course, up in Redcliffe at the Dolphins. So Jacob Saifidi, they lost him, I think, running out to the ground, or in the warm-up, something like that. I think it was running out. So a calf injury to him. They then lost James Schiller as well, failed HIA, so they lost him as well. So they were down to 15, and then at one stage, I think they were down to 1 reserve on the bench. So an absolute brave effort, you could say, from the Newcastle Knights to only hold the Bulldogs to 2-0 at half time. It wasn't until the 41st minute, so straight after half time, Josh Curran got the first try, and look, there was a little bit of confusion about that one. He thought he scored, but then when it was going through the video replay, it looked like he thought maybe it's not going to be a try, but it did end up being a try. Jack Todd made his debut last week against the Sharks. He scored his first NRL try. in the 45th minute. It was a pretty much barnstorming run. I thought he was like running like Forrest Gump. I didn't think he was going to stop. I thought he was going to go over the dead ball line, but he just hit that ball so fast and just got through that line and scored his first NRL try. So congratulations to him. Kurt Mann, who was playing his 200th NRL game last night against Newcastle, scored a try as well. So good to get a try in a milestone match like that one. And Stephen Crichton kicked 4 goals as well. So look, just shows you how good the Bulldogs are going now. Their defence especially. It's one of the traits, I guess, that Cameron Ciraldo has brought from the Penrith system over to the Bulldogs. And look, it's working at the moment. They pretty much held Newcastle out so many times. They suffered Newcastle with possession, and they had 11 extra sets than Newcastle, although their completion rate was a little bit down. They had an extra 8 minutes of possession, so they really did starve Newcastle of possession. They had 57% and then Newcastle only 43%. So a good win for the Bulldogs. They move to a bye next week, so very timely for them. Look, we'll go through the NRL ladder now. That leads the Bulldogs, the team I just spoke about, on top on 5 wins, 10 points, and now a bye next week. The Brisbane Broncos, the Melbourne Storm, Warriors round out the top 4. The Warriors having their bye on the weekend. The Rabbitohs, Sea Eagles, Raiders and Titans round out the top 8. So they are the bottom 4 of the top 8. In 9th position after that loss last night is the Newcastle Knights. The Sharks, as I spoke about before, is in 10th. The Tigers in 11th. The Dragons now are in 12th. The Cowboys, they have been probably the biggest mover up the ladder. They are in 13th spot. The Dolphins in 14th. The Panthers are in 15th. Who would have thought we would have seen them so low? But I guess that's what happens after 4 losses in a row. But I dare say they won't finish down that far this season. You have to be a brave man to say they would. The Roosters in 16th and my Parramatta Eels still are on the bottom of the ladder, but they have had a win. So I jokingly say to everyone, well, we are in the same position as the Panthers, but just for and against just does not help us out. But that is okay because the only way is up. Now, to the injury ward, and you could say there was some big names that injured from the weekend. Lindsay Collins unfortunately suffered a medial ligament injury in the loss to the Rabbitohs, so it looks like he may be 6 weeks on the sidelines, which is a big blow for him leading into State of Origin. As I mentioned before, Cody Walker, Jamie Humphries, Michaeli Ravalawa, all hamstring injuries, so there's going to be some massive changes in South Sydney's backline for next week's game. Cody Walker facing 2 to 3 weeks, Jamie Humphries 4 to 5, and Ravalawa a 6 to 8 stint on the sideline. Jacob Saifidi tore his calf running onto the field before kickoff. That is so unlucky. And then, as I said, James Schiller failed his HIA, was involved in a head clash in the first set of the match. So that is not good either. That is unlucky. And Jack Hetherington as well suffered a shoulder injury. So they were down to one player on the bench. So a pretty brave effort from the Newcastle Knights. This next player, probably just, I guess, I've never had one of these, but it just shows you how tough they can be, NRL players. Jack Cogger played more than 40 minutes with a dislocated finger. So, unbelievable that one. But Coach Adam O'Brien expects Cogger to be available next week. Unbelievable that one, but just shows you how tough players can be in this NRL competition. Scans have cleared Adam Reynolds of any hamstring damage, so he'll be free to face the Roosters, so that's good news for Brisbane Broncos fans. Clutched at his hamstring after kicking a conversion and immediately off the field, so he must have been well ahead there. Jason Saab is in doubt after another hamstring as well. Manly play in Perth next week, so looks like Jason Saab will miss that trip. Mitch Kenny returned to the field to play through the pain barrier of a shoulder injury, as Jack Cole was required to go a HIA check. So look, who knows whether he will come back. Just have to wait and see what happens there. All us Parramatta fans, the news during the week that Mitchell Moses is targeting a round 9 return as he takes his next step forward in a return from that foot injury. We want him back quicker than ever, but he had hoped for a return in round 7 or 8, but round 8 is a bye for Parramatta, so unfortunately the recovery has taken slightly longer than planned, but he's progressing well. Jack Williams, as we know, he'll be out for 5 weeks with that knee injury, and Joey Lussick had surgery to repair a fractured thumb. Look, they are I guess you could say, major injuries there of the week, and just a little bit of news about Mitchell Moses. To next week, round number 6 of the NRL, and there's a few interstate games happening this week. It starts on Thursday. The Dolphins play the Panthers at Suncorp Stadium. The Dragons, they play the Titans at Wynn Stadium on Friday. That's the first 6 o'clock game. The Broncos play the Roosters, you guessed it, on a Friday night, 8 p.m, up at Suncorp Stadium. The Sharks take on the Sea Eagles. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This game is at Optus Stadium in Perth. First of a double header there. The second one is Rabbitohs and Cowboys. Two teams in form, although the Rabbitohs will be decimated by injuries, so a few changes to them. The Cowboys look like they'll probably have the same team as the one that beat the Panthers, so that might be an advantage. And the other interstate game is the Eels take on the Raiders at TIO Stadium in Darwin, the last of their contracted games up there. The Storm take on the Warriors down at Amy Park, and the last game of the round is at 4:05 p.m. back to the traditional slot of 4:05 p.m. on a Sunday, as daylight savings has finished now. So that game is Newcastle versus the Tigers up at McDonald Jones Stadium in Newcastle. And as I mentioned before, the Bulldogs have the bye, so a 4-point game, you could say, for them last week. Look, thank you very much for listening to this podcast. I will try and get a NRL fan expert on for these, as I know you just don't want to listen to me babbling on, I guess, but I will try and get a couple of NRL experts, fans, each and every week to try and do these ones, but a bit of a rushed week this week, so You got me. I hope you enjoyed that one. Please, if you do, leave me a rating and review. Share it with your family and friends. I really appreciate the support of the podcast. The Para Cave podcast, by the fan, for the fans. Go Para!
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. See you next time.